Hello, Outriders. It is Ebontis here, and today I want to preview the classes with as much information as we've got so far before the demo comes out. So once you jump into the demo, which is going to be free to everybody on Xbox, PlayStation, and Steam on February 25th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. So just to give you guys that little preview info, anybody can jump in, totally free, no pre-order required. My goal in this is to give you an idea how the classes might feel. Until I have my hands on them, I won't know 100% for sure, but hopefully this gives you an idea which character you might want to start on in the demo. Nice thing is about the demo and the full game, you're going to have 6 character slots, and there's only 4 classes, so you're going to have plenty of space to try them all. And the demo does not have an end date or a timer on it, so you're going to be able to play the demo as long as you want. You can go through the demo completely with each character. We've got a month before the game comes out, plenty of time for you to try them all and find what works for you. But let's dive into the characters and give you an idea who you might be choosing first. Now, just one thing to be said about the classes before we get going. They all are going to feel a little bit differently, but I think they're all going to be something you can either solo the game with, play successfully with. I don't know how the balancing is completely done. Obviously, we won't know if something's completely broken until we get our hands on the game. But quite a few classes have damage mitigation or, kind of tankier builds. Others are going to have things that focus on skills and damage output. So, depending on which class you take doesn't mean you're going to have to play a specific role. But I do think there are going to be some that are going to excel at least slightly more than other classes in certain areas. So let's dive into each one. Let's start with the Pyromancer. Now, the Pyromancer, to no surprise, is a fire-based subclass. You're going to have fire and thermal-based effects and skills. You're going to be doing kind of area effect things. You're going to be conjuring fire, quite literally. And you're going to be playing from a medium range. Picture yourself as kind of a mid-range DPS character, kind of a caster. You could lean fairly heavily into almost a glass cannon if you want to. But you also can get some pretty decent damage mitigation if you like. We'll talk about the skill trees in a second. But each class has a unique healing style, and I'll cover each one as we go through. The big thing about Outriders is they want you to play offensively mostly. There's one class that's slightly different, I'll cover it last. But each of the classes gets their health back in unique ways. So for the Pyromancer, you will recover your health when enemies marked by your skills are killed. So if you burn an enemy, you're going to mark them. If you do ash on the ground and stop them in place, you're going to mark them. If any of your skills mark an enemy and the mark looks like this little skull with a little plus on it, if you see that it's marked, when you kill that enemy, you're going to get a chunk of your health back. Now, you may be like, how big's the chunk? I think it's a pretty good sized chunk because the health bar moves a lot. So as long as you're active in battle and not completely getting overwhelmed, for example, you likely will be able to survive. Now, there are a few more details about the characters we don't quite know. Again, once we get the demo, we'll dive deeper into them. But the melees are also a bit unique for each class, in the fact there's kind of 2 types. One, when you're standing still, and you'll punch and basically inflict fire and burn damage. It also seems we get to see a little more on another character that you have a different melee as you're moving. Kind of if you're sprinting and you do a melee, it might be a slam or an area of effect. We'll have to see because I haven't seen the one for the Pyromancer yet. But you've got 2 different styles of melees, both standing and moving. So keep that in mind. But the big thing is all of your skills are going to mark enemies. When you kill those enemies, you're going to be getting health back once you kill those. Each class has 3 skill trees, and this is where you can choose your playstyle. You get a total of about 20 skill points over the course of the game. In the demo, you're going to get like 2, so you're not going to get to go that far. But the skill trees are fairly deep, and then there's a point where the connections actually stop. So you're not really going to want to probably be a jack of all trades because the nodes at the end of the skill trees seem to be fairly powerful, and there's some pretty cool ones along the way. But the idea is you're not going to be able to fill out everything in the skill tree. You're not going to get like 60 points and get everything. You are going to probably have to pick a play style depending on how you want to play. Now, if you're playing in a group or if you're playing solo, may determine how you want to play. The nice thing about the skill tree, you can reset it at any time for free, so you can do it all the time if you really want to. Try this playstyle out. You get a weapon or a set of armor that helps something else, reset it and try that playstyle. So the freedom of the skill trees is actually really nice, that you can reset it at any time and experiment because the different gear that you get, the different mods that you're going to get, and the way you're going to be able to customize the character may change depending on what you're doing. You may have a solo build and a set of armor and weapons to go with that. You may also have a team build where you're, somebody else is up in front of you and you've got to be a little less tanky. You might be able to put out more damage. So speaking of damage, we've got 3 different skill trees. First is the Ashbreaker. This is going to deal bonus damage to marked enemies. So any of the enemies that you mark with your skills, you're going to be able to deal bonus damage to them. So it's kind of a tag team of both your guns and then your skills, kind of marking enemies, getting that bonus going. You're also going to get a boost to anomaly power, which I'm not entirely sure what that is yet. If that's an increase to your skill damage, maybe. Kind of hard to tell. Second one is going to be Firestorm. This is very, very heavily probably your Glass Cayman. This is going to be max damage output of skills. So anything where you're doing fire damage or there's a actual beam of fire that comes out of you, all of those types of things are going to have their damages increased. So if you go heavy into that one, you're going to be very skill-based. Now, the nice thing about the skills, you have 8 of them per character, or per class, I should say. You can only pick 3, but the cooldowns are all fairly short. So even if you go heavy into skills, it's not like I'm waiting 2 minutes to use each skill. You're going to get them every like 10, 15 seconds. So if you play decently smart, you're going to get to use these all the time, synergize them together, and then I'm sure mods and armor and stuff is going to make them even more fun. Finally, we've got Tempest. Tempest is going to be your max health and kind of damage reduction. There's even one node in the tree that's called Phoenix Nestling. Basically what it does is it auto-revives you with 50% health, and you can do that every 3 minutes. So that's pretty powerful. So while this isn't the tanking class, if you went as a solo Pyromancer and you went deep into the Tempest tree, you might not do as much damage, but you're probably going to survive a lot more than the average person. So keep that in mind. Each class has their way to, fill their own playstyle. A little more survival, a little more DPS, a little more kind of mix of everything. Now, the abilities that we know about, we don't know all of them so far, but we do know some. And then there's 1 or 2 that I've kind of plucked from ammo pictures as well. So one is going to be called Thermal Bomb. This one seems to run across the ground towards an enemy, and then it's going to start burning that enemy. Now, if the enemy dies while they're burning, which seems to last a pretty good amount of time, if they die, they will rise up in the air and explode, doing a big area of effect damage to any enemies around them as well. So if you can get that one enemy thermal bombed, have them rise up, and then another rush of enemies are coming at you, it's going to explode and kill all of them. So, big one taking down all the rest. Second, we've got Ash Blast. You're going to send out this ash cloud or kind of ash effect around you and basically freeze everything in place for a few seconds. So it's going to be your crowd control. Basically, if you need to stop everything in front of you, now it's probably not going to work on a boss, but it is going to be able to stop things that are near you and also give you a chance to potentially line some stuff up as well, which will go with kind of the next ability. The next ability is Heat Wave. So it's one of the early abilities you're going to get, probably definitely going to see this one in the demo, and it basically is a wall of fire or wave that kind of emits from you traveling forward through the ground, and it goes through all enemies, so it's not going to get stopped by enemies, it just kind of travels forward, damages anything in their path, and it's also going to put the burn effect on them as well. Now, why is the burn effect important? Well, here's the key. One of the abilities is called Overheat. Overheat is going to do a little damage to a big radius of enemies. And you're like, okay. Now that will mark the enemies. So remember, if the enemies are marked and you kill them, you get healing. So you could use Overheat and start picking off a couple guys and get some health back if you need to. But the big purpose of Overheat is the fact that it will do a large chunk of extra damage to any enemies that are burning. So you could, ash blast a few enemies, plant a thermal bomb on one of them, while it's burning, then you do that Overheat, that one rises up, explodes, and kills everything that got stuck in place, or at least that was slowed. So the pairing of abilities is something they seem to have really thought through fairly well, because there's going to be synergy between most all of the abilities, and I haven't even seen about half of them yet. I've seen peeks at a couple extras, but overall I've only seen about half of the abilities, and there seems like some really fun combos that they've even shown so far. The last one that I know of for sure is called Phaser Beam, because I've seen a graphic and kind of, you guys can see the animation firing this like beam of fire that comes out of your hands. And it's also on a piece of armor where you can see where it says Phaser Beam. So it seems like it's just a beam of fire that comes out of you. That's literally all I know. I don't know if it's going to be something that you can move back and forth, if it's just going to cast straight out in front of you, if it's going to pierce enemies. It's probably going to have burning and marking and all that stuff. So we'll have to get our hands on that one later. But overall, the Pyromancer seems like a fairly cool class. As I said, if you go with that skill tree where you're tankier, you have that self-revive, you're definitely still going to be able to play this in a solo style. and I will try them all that way. But this is your, fire-based, medium range, got some area effect stuff to this, a little bit of crowd control, a little bit of burning and fire. Overall, seems like a cool class. I can't wait to get my hands on it. Second class we have is the Devastator. Now, the Devastator is going to be pretty polar opposite to the Pyromancer, I'll be honest. You've got a very earth-based, kind of kinetic and gravity-based class. This is going to be your big ultra tank. So lots of things with brute force, kinetic damage, and the big thing about this character is that you can probably be the ultimate tank of all the classes. As I said, the Pyromancer can get some damage mitigation. The self-revive is probably going to be pretty cool. But this is the one that is going to be the beefiest, probably of all, if you had to stack them up next to each other. So if you are a tank class, this is probably going to be for you. And the main reason is because the way you get healing, as I said before, they're all a little different. The way you get health is you get health when enemies are slain close to you. That's literally how you do it. So you have to be up in the front of battle, or you have to get there and kill them up close. You could do stuff far away, but you need to be there when they die, which does mean you've actually got a couple abilities that will actually move you around a bit too. So overall, they're going to have a bit more health and armor than other classes. So they are going to be a bit heavier that way, as I said. But don't think that they can't do damage as well, because they definitely have a skill tree that they're going to be able to dive pretty hard into that. Now, this melee for the Devastator is actually going to inflict bleed. So you're going to have that bleed status effect. So the melee itself, depending on how it works, I know you can do the melee standing, and then it seems like the melee for this is going to be kind of a running slam, and that will do bleed damage to all the enemies around you. Now, the nice thing about that is they're going to tick damage over time, and all you had to do is your melee. So that's not a bad thing. Run by a boss, punch him, you're able to take a bit of damage, get out of there, let the bleed happen. Overall, a tanky class, but you're definitely going to be up in the mix. So if you like to play far away, you want to be a glass cannon, this probably is not the one I would lean into for you. Now, for the class trees, this is where you get to figure out how heavy you want to lean into stuff. You've got 3 different ones. You've got the Vanquisher, which is going to be close range combat. You get bonuses to shotguns and assault rifles. You'll get bonus damage there. And it's going to be definitely up close and personal. So you'll probably have some armor, also some bonuses to your abilities where you're up close. Then you have your Warden. The Warden is your ultimate tank. This is very high bonuses to armor and health. This is if you want to be the one to take all the bullets and take as much damage as possible in a bad spot for your team, especially if you're like, you have a Pyromancer who went full into like skill damage. You're like, cool, you stay back there. I'm going to be the Warden up here and I'm going to take all the hits. So overall, you definitely probably have the ultra tank here. Finally, you've got the Seismic Shifter. Now, as I said, this class deals with gravity and kinetics, but also kind of earth-based powers. And this also one focuses on damage over time, so kind of your bleeds and effects that you're going to have. And also going to give you a bonus to anomaly damage. I'm still not entirely sure if anomaly damage just like increases your skill damage, which is probably what it does, but I haven't seen it yet, so again, kind of guessing. Now, for your abilities, I've seen about 4 or 5, so I'll show you the ones that I've got. First one is going to be Gravity Leap. So as I said, you need to kill enemies up close and personal. So this one works in 2 phases. You're going to jump up into the air first, kind of this floating mass of earth, and then the second activation basically is going to slam you down on an enemy and do an area of effect damage. It also works as an interrupt. So certain enemies, especially bosses, are going to have larger attacks that they're going to charge up. This is something that you'd want to kind of save up. If you see that, big skill being charged up, you're going to want to interrupt that one so you don't get smashed by something ridiculous. So the Gravity Leap is going to have multiple uses, getting you up close and personal so you can get those close-up kills, get your health back. Also use it as an interrupt as well. Second one we've got is Reflect Bullets. Now, Reflect Bullets is probably exactly what you think. You picture Neo, and he stops all the bullets. The only difference is, at the end of stopping all the bullets, when you're done, you activate it again, and you send all the bullets you gathered out to the enemies, which is really cool, so you're able to pump a lot of damage back out to them. So one, you're saving your allies by absorbing all the bullets into your shield, and then you turn around and shoot them back out and do more damage as well. So I'm not sure what this thing's going to be able to hold and then therefore reflect. Like if there's energy attacks or lightning or fire, this may not be effective for that. But kinetic bullets, depending on what's shooting at you, this is going to be very beneficial there. So enemy type may depend on when this comes useful. Third one that we know is Impale. A spike from the earth literally will come out of the ground and damage enemies. cool thing is, if it kills them, it's going to actually impale them and leave them on the spike. And what that's going to do is when you actually get the big spike, so if you see somebody getting low, then you impale them, you're going to, for one, spike them, which just looks cool. You're going to get your squad armor and health bonuses, and you've also got different modifiers for that impale, so you can have more things get spiked, or about 6 or 7 other things. So there's a lot of mods in this game for both armor and weapons that can change how your abilities work, and I'll explain one very specific one that I know when it comes to the final class, so save that thought. The last one I can show you guys here is going to be Endless Mass. Now, this basically creates your own black hole. So it's like you're throwing out a big rock that has its own gravitational force like a planet, and it's going to suck all the enemies up close to it. Well, what do you need to do as a Devastator? You need to kill things up close. So put these together. You could, have an Impale that modified so you can spike more enemies. You do that after, so you throw out Endless Mass, get them all close together. Then you do an Impale, so they're all kind of weakened. Then you do a Gravity Leap, hop in the air, and then smash down on all those enemies that have been stuck next to that Endless Mass. Bam, there's a nice combination. You've killed a lot of enemies, and you got a large chunk of your health back. So that's the idea. Again, you're seeing how these abilities can work together, even if you're alone. Much less the fact that you take another class. I throw an Endless Mass out there, collect all the enemies together, and then I can have my Pyromancer friends send a wave of fire through them and cook them all. So working together is going to be really cool, but it also seems like you're going to be able to do many things by yourself as well. And that's the cool thing about the game, is they said they balanced it for both teams and solo players alike. That basically does wrap up the Devastator, though. You've got the idea that you're working with Earth and kinetics and gravity. You are a tankier class, and if you're going to get health back, you got to be up close and personal when those enemies die. So you're going to need to plan your build accordingly. And if this sounds like fun for you, we need some good tanks out there. So definitely check this one out. Third class we've got is the Trickster. Now, the Trickster is going to be messing with time and space, kind of your assassin, basically, with a little more than your usual assassin, because they actually get to teleport around a little bit. Very cool class looking. The healing for this class is going to sound similar to the Devastator, but it is going to work differently. So you are going to get help. You are going to heal when you kill enemies in close range. The difference, how the Devastator got armor, which is probably going to work like damage mitigation, the Trickster is going to get shields, and there are definitely certain abilities that play into shields and other pieces. They are the only class that has a shield, though. So they are going to work in a similar fashion where you got to be up close and personal, but they're the only ones who get shields. So there's going to be a difference between armor and shields. I'm just going to have to see it in action, but know that while it is similar, it is not the same. And again, when you get your heal back, you're going to be pretty up close and personal. So again, if you want to be up in the fight, you want to consider this class. But if you're like, I kind of do and I kind of don't, as this one can mess with space and time, and there's some teleporting and stuff involved, this is kind of your in and out class. Like, go get in, get some crazy damage, get out. Or you're in a pinch, teleport up behind the enemies, and then now they're in a pickle. So overall, it's still a cool class, but not just kind of like run into the fight face first like a Devastator would, just be that tank. Teleporter's a bit more, the Trickster I should say, not the Teleporter, but he will do that. The Trickster is a bit more tactical, and definitely going to be one of those where you'll see him get some cool uses. So the skill trees will let you dive into the class a little bit more, as I said, and choose how you want to go. So you've got 3 different choices. The first is going to be Master of Space. This one will provide you bonuses while moving and close combat effectiveness. So you're going to be buffing things like shotguns and submachine guns, and also kind of your movement-based skills. So you're going to be a little more effective in bouncing around in the spatial area around your enemies. Second one is going to be Harbinger. Now, this is the tankier path for this class. So as I said, just because the probable ultimate tank would be the Devastator on the Warden path, the Harbinger still is going to have damage mitigation, shield improvements, and if you play this class well, you're still going to be, getting a lot of shields, taking less damage, and still teleporting around and stuff. You just may have to be a little more, particular how you do it. But if you can take a little bit more damage and your shields are kind of beastly, you're still going to be pretty powerful, especially paired with those movement abilities. It's going to be harder for enemies to trap you, and it's your ability to get out of the situation that is probably going to be just as beneficial. The final one is going to be Assassin. Skill damage outputs, basically making your skills more powerful. You're also your skill leech options, so you actually might be able to sneak some life away from enemies as you use your abilities. So overall, kind of going deeper into the skills. Again, not quite a glass cannon like the Pyromancer, more of a true assassin where you're wearing, lower armor but higher damage output. So risk versus reward is what I would picture assassin to be like. Now, the melee on this class will do a couple things. One, it's going to stun and slow enemies, which is especially true for the one where you stand still and punch. And then the other one is when you sprint, it seems to be like an AoE slam, probably with similar effects of stunning and slowing. So if you get to the point where you run up onto a bunch of enemies and you do the AoE slam, you're going to slow them and stun them, hit a couple abilities, and you might be able to duck out or at least run away. Overall, still fairly cool, kind of jamming on what this one's got to offer. Now, the abilities for the Trickster, I don't have that many to show you guys, but I've seen some, got a cool idea on a couple others. The first one is Temporal Slice. You've seen this a couple times in some of the clips I've already showed. It's the first power you're probably going to get. And basically, all enemies in this big swiping, energy slice are going to be temporarily paralyzed. And you'll see this cool animation where it shows their skeleton, which is fantastic. And they're going to be slowed. And the cool thing about that is that can be a finisher where you weaken a couple enemies and you'll be able to get teleport behind them. I'll show you guys how that one works here in a second. And that one's going to be potentially like a finisher. And you're going to be able to get your health back because that up-close finisher power, nice way to get your health back, and you're up close, got some shields, and you've probably moved around the battlefield. Second thing we've got is Borrowed Time. So what you're going to do is gain a % of your max health as a shield, and what this is going to do is create a clone. So you're going to, when you activate this, you're going to leave a clone of you in one place, and you're going to move freely about and attack. And then when you use your ability again, you're going to pop back to your original spot. So up ahead of you looks like a very precarious situation. You're going to pop this, run in there, and do what you can. You've got even more health as a shield, so you're a bit tankier when you go in. You get as much damage out there as you can, hurt some enemies, do what you can, and then back out, back where you were, and, maybe gather yourself, give it a second. And as the abilities are on cooldown, I mean, this one will maybe like 15, 20 seconds. They're probably going to charge at you after like 15 or 20 seconds, but depending on how big these levels are and how much you can get away from them, you might be able to do this even twice, really giving yourself that in and out, kind of master of space and time situation. Overall, seems fairly cool. Next ability we've got is Slow Trap. Slow enemies and projectiles. So it's literally like a bullet time dome, bubble, however you want to call it. And there's some pretty cool things that I've seen in there. There's an armor set where if you have Slow Trap up, you literally can't die in it, which I think is a thing, but we'll have to see that in game to be sure. But overall, enemies are slowed and projectiles are slowed. So literally bullets travel through it slower, but you should be on a normal speed. So you can use it to stack a bunch of enemies together, slow them down, maybe get them all together. But again, think about a combination of character classes as well. A Devastator. You throw the gravity well, or the endless mass, I'm sorry, but basically it's a gravity well, on a boss with some adds. Cool, they all get sucked in. Then you throw the Slow Trap on that same spot. So now you got enemies all stuck together and slowed. You got a Pyromancer back there as well. And they light everything on fire. And then they do that overheat and make everything explode. It's just a rain of body parts and blood and explosions, and it's all great. So the working together in this game is going to be great. And that's the nice thing, that crossplay is going to be really nice to have, because Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and eventually the other platforms, you're going to be able to play with each other in full crossplay. I am very curious to see how that one works. Now, the next ability is Hunt the Prey. Highlight enemies, and then once you use it again, you're going to teleport behind them. You're going to gain a % of your maximum health as a shield. So again, when you teleport, you're going into the line of fire, so you're pretty close to enemies. So you're going to be a bit tankier with those shields. And the enemy that you used it on is going to be slowed. So if you use it on one, like a sniper, and you can get behind him, well, guess what? That guy's in trouble because you're up close and personal and you're about to ruin his day. But on the other side, you're able to get behind them and then do some damage, get those close kills, refill your health. You could be in a bad spot, teleport, slow that enemy, kill them, get some health back, and start working your way back into a fight. Overall, seems fairly cool. The last one that I know of is Twisted Rounds. It's going to fill your current weapon with anomaly-infused bullets. And again, this is where I don't know what quite the anomaly power works. It ties into the story. It's the anomaly. It's a whole mystery behind the story. But basically, you're going to increase your firepower by a certain amount of damage. So if your anomaly power is high, that's probably going to be a very good skill. Now, it says it lasts until you reload or you switch weapons. So if you have an assault rifle with a very long magazine, this could be really cool. But I've also seen there are different abilities where as you get kills, you continue to reload your magazine, or armor pieces that are going to make this last longer. So seeing a skill is not the only way it's going to function. A lot of armor mods are going to change how certain things work, and then certain weapons might tie into that even more. So overall, the synergy and the min-maxing that you're going to be able to do deep into this game seem like you can go fairly far. But that basically wraps up the Trickster. We've got, again, it's a manipulator of time and space, assassin, up close and personal, and your heals are going to come from those close kills, but you're the only one who's got shields, so keep that in mind. Now, the Technomancer is your final subclass. Now, this one seems fairly cool, and if you enjoy your range, and also kind of your lone wolf style, this one may be for you, but also don't count this one out in a group because its support is also going to be very, very helpful. So this is going to be your technology-based subclass. Most things can't use technology because you've kind of gone back to the dark ages after all of the craziness happened before you went to sleep as an Outrider. But you're able to kind of put together random turrets and have technology. Overall, one of the more unique classes from the other three. But you've also going to be more focused on range damage with like sniper rifles. So you do get a bonus there as well. I just enjoy sniping in general, so that may be why I lean this way. But also as a solo player, this feels like one where you're kind of going to be able to have distractions and other things that help keep you alive. Now, this class specifically also deals with freezing and toxic abilities. So you're going to do kind of like an acidic type damage over time. The melee will freeze enemies, and also when you smash to the ground, will kind of do an area of effect freeze. So it does seem like most are going to have like a standard punch or melee that's going to do a certain effect. And then if you're running and you do the same effect, it's going to be more of a smash AoE. I don't have confirmation what a couple do, but I would assume it's probably like that for even the Pyromancer. Might run and slam fire. But this will be freezing enemies in place, which is cool, and the smash will do it in a bigger radius. And that's pretty nice because if you are someone who's wanting to be at range and something gets close, if you can freeze them in place and back away, that's probably going to work in your benefit. Now, the skill trees for the Pyromancer are as follows. We've got Pestilence, which is going to deal with decay and damage. So the decay is going to come from that toxic ability. You're going to do those damage over time abilities. You're also going to increase your damage with sniper rifles and assault rifles, any of those ranged weaponry pieces. Second, we've got the Tech Shaman. This is going to be focused on indirect damage. Basically anything besides you doing damage. Your turrets, your abilities, all those other things are probably going to be where this is coming from. You've got turrets that will do freezing. You've got ability to actually have a second chance. So again, this is a way to kind of revive yourself in battle. Again, another thing nice to have as a solo player. And you're also going to be improved healing, hence the Shaman title in this one. Finally, you've got Demolisher. This is going to be kind of your jack of all trades. It's going to boost your toxic abilities, so increase toxic damage. And also when you freeze enemies, you're going to inflict toxic damage. And you're also going to improve gadgets. So overall, kind of a mix of everything that you've got as a Technomancer, and a nice, pretty cool overall jack of all trades, as they said. As for the abilities, the four that we've seen so far are first, Tool of Destruction, which seems fairly cool because if you hit the button, it's going to be a rocket launcher, which is kind of awesome. And then if you hold the button on this ability, you're going to pull out a minigun, which you walk around probably a little slower, but pumping out some minigun damage, which is always going to be pretty high. Now, even if you guys are wondering about mods, I've seen one of the mods for the Tool of Destruction where your rocket launcher has like 3 more rockets. It might have 2 to start and it goes up to 5. So the armor mods that you're going to have are really going to change some of these abilities up. So armor is going to be a fun thing to dive into with you guys in future videos. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you're not already. Second one is going to be Fixing Wave. Now, this is the only ability that can restore health to basically everybody. This is one of the few things that actually does healing. Now, if you're paired up to where you can do enough damage and you can manage the battlefield, you don't need to waste an ability on a heal, but also know, depending on which tree you're running, you might want this because it heals you, your allies, and your constructs. So any turrets that you've got out there are going to be able to live a little bit longer. You would heal yourself and also your constructs, and I don't know how much distance it is. It covers a pretty big range is all I know. You don't have to be like close by. Basically, it just heals most allies around you in every way, including the like turrets that you make. So again, if that's a distraction you're trying to get out of there, keep that thing alive longer, and you just healed yourself too, double win. Next thing we've got is the Pain Launcher. Now, this is basically an artillery missile launcher. You kind of put this little missile launcher on the ground, and it shoots a wave of missiles in kind of a forward direction in front of it, peppering however many missiles. I think I saw a piece of armor on this one where it increased the number of missiles by 20. So they do seem to be going nice and over the top on some of these mods to make abilities that are probably somewhat normal a little crazier once you find the right mod. Finally, we've got Blighted Turret. This is kind of an automated turret, and it's going to basically spray the toxic effect for damage. Kind of shoots green goo, basically. And that toxic effect is going to do damage over time, and obviously is going to be one of those things where if you pair with the right status, remember, you're also going to be able to, you know, kind of work with the freezing and toxic. Well, if somebody's like decaying while they're frozen, they can't do anything and they're dying. So overall, the abilities on the Technomancer seem fairly cool and unique. I'll be curious to see how powerful, say, a Pyromancer is that goes into full skill damage versus, you know, a Technomancer who's trying to sit back and survive. It's going to be different style of fighting for sure, but I think the Technomancer is going to be somebody you want on your team for the support heals and also some of the damage over time. It's nice to have somebody who's able to do that to a lot of things, so everything is dying a little bit slower while everybody else is working on things too. So the Technomancer, again, your long-ranged support subclass working with technology and turrets, and your effects are going to be both freezing and toxicity or that decay damage. And that pretty much wraps up the characters. So I know this was kind of a long video, but I did want to give you guys a deep dive where I could and cover the classes as possible to give you guys an idea of where you might want to start. Nice thing is you're going to have a month. You can probably try them all if you want to go through the demo, you know, a couple different times to see how it feels. If you try one character, not a big fan of it, switch over, you know, try the demo on another character. See if that one feels more your style. Overall, as you guys can see, the healing is unique per class. But it is around being offensive generally, whether it's doing damage, being up close when things die, setting things on fire and then killing them. However you do the damage your character is going to do, that's typically going to be how you're going to get your healing as well. And then you guys can also see your abilities tend to work together fairly well if you start pairing certain combos together, and I've only seen half of the abilities. So overall, that's your characters: Technomancer, Pyromancer, Devastator, and Trickster. Comment below, let me know what you guys are going to pick. If you guys are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button and the alert bell. I'm going to be streaming both on YouTube and Twitch, so you can find me on Twitch as well, twitch.tv/Ebontis. I'll be streaming this. I also play a good amount of Destiny, so if you're new to the channel and like either of those, you're in a good place. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like. If you want to comment, question about anything, I've been trying to answer questions as you guys comment below, so if you got questions about things, I'll try and answer what I can. The demo, as I said, does go live February 25th at noon. Check your platforms. Should be out there for everybody. And you can also find me on Twitter at Ebontis as well. Thank you guys very much. I will see you in the future, and maybe I'll be able to play with you guys because crossplay hopefully works very well. I'll see you soon.